Hello everybody, hope you're doing well. Welcome to PSYC49. Looks like we have some people watching live here, maybe a few more will join soon, but hopefully we'll have a large class attending it synchronously. So, boy, what a year, huh? As you can see, I'm in a much cooler place than you folks are right now, but I empathize with you and your hot weather down there. I know this has been a really tough year, and I want to completely let you know that I understand everything that you've been going through, and that this is not the way many of you thought that you'd be starting the college year. I know it's a real disappointment. I know this is the type of class that many people take as their first class. It's often considered a freshman class, and many of you are probably freshmen. I wanted to let you know that as a personal perspective, my son is your age. My son just started college last month and is doing everything online, and you know, you folks are the folks that missed your high school graduations, and now you're missing what looks like most of your freshman year in terms of having real classes. That being said, we're going to do the best we can with this. We're going to use the course as a way to learn the material that you've been interested in signing up to learn. But I also want to kind of really, more than anything else, be able to use this class as a way for you to understand that with everything going on in the world, and not just the quarantine, clearly there's so much going on in the world, that just thinking and intellectualizing on things can be a really nice way to distract yourself. And so that's how I see this class more than anything else, as a way for all of us to talk about some really interesting material and distract ourselves from everything that's going on. And that's a great tool to learn, right? That you know, even when things get tough, if you can rely on your intellect, if you can rely on you know, the way you think, you know, learning new things to make yourself, you know, kind of calm down and feel better, I will be delighted if that's what you get from this course. When I see you on campus next year, you know, you say, I don't remember a thing from your course, but boy, I enjoyed just distracting myself during the lectures and during, you know, as I was reading and all that and just thinking about things. I'd be delighted if we get that far. Okay, so I just wanted you to know that I completely understand your perspective. As I said, I talked to my son Deli about what he's going through in his online courses and all that. I know this is not optimal, but we're going to do the very best we can to make it fun and engaging. Okay, what I'd like to do is first talk to you a little bit about some of the mechanics of the course. So I will share a screen here of a slide. And, all right, hopefully you're seeing both me and the slide. Let me just move this around. If not, we can talk about any problems that you might be having with the technology. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the slide, and then I'm going to allow you to ask some questions about the course and let me know if there's any problems with the sound or the video that you're experiencing right now. But we'll do that through chat probably. Okay, so I'm Lawrence Rosenblum. My office is in the psychology building. Come visit me when you're allowed to again. I know no undergraduates are supposed to be on campus right now, but I go on campus once every week or so now, but I will obviously be, when everything's back to normal, we'll be on campus, and feel free to stop by then. The best way to do office hours, I think, is by appointment, and so feel free to email me, and we can set up a Zoom meeting, and it's worked really well. So just to let you know a little background, I had taught this exact course in the spring, and then I taught it again this summer. So you know, I've kind of fine-tuned the way things work best when it comes to having a class like this, a large class like this. There's my email right there. When it comes to questions, though, and usually this happens in the beginning of the quarter, especially in the beginning of an academic year, people have questions about whether they can register for the course or drop the course or change their discussion section, that sort of thing. It's nothing I'm allowed to do. That sort of thing has to be done through the student advisors. When it comes to changing your discussion section, I think that's going to be relatively easy, because as long as you're getting in the information in one of the sections, which each will be videotaped for you, then you'll have access to it. So I would not worry terribly if you've realized you do have a conflict. You might want to just contact your TA and say, geez, I'd really like to come to class synchronously. Is it okay if I come to your 10 a.m. class rather than your 11 a.m. class, that sort of thing. And even if you can't do that, everything's recorded. And I should just say, I sent out emails to you folks from iLearn about the fact that all these lectures are recorded, as well as being held synchronously. And I do realize that with everything going on, some folks can't actually attend synchronously. But let me tell you this, and hopefully the folks that are not experiencing this synchronously will also get this message. If there is any way you can attend the class live from 5 to 6:20 on Tuesday and Thursday, and your discussion sections as well, it will help you. I promise. You know, that we don't know very much about what online teaching is like versus synchronous or live teaching, but the data is starting to emerge saying that even in these situations where it's Zoom against YouTube or something like that, people do enjoy the class more, and they do a little better if they are attending through Zoom synchronously rather than watching the video later on. So if there's a way you can do it for most classes, I highly recommend it. The other thing I wanted to mention is this. The technology has generally worked well. However, if it doesn't, you're going to be responsible for the material anyway. So as long as you're attending Zoom, you're assured to actually be able to get the material. If a video doesn't work for some reason, then we'll have to we'll have to figure something out. You can read through the book, that sort of thing, but I can't promise that every class will absolutely be videotaped. It's worked pretty well so far, but every once in a while we do know of glitches. Okay? All right, I see there's some questions there, and I love that. I'm really glad. I will answer those as soon as we go through this slide. Your grade will be based on 3 multiple choice exams held throughout the quarter. The first one's going to be about week 4, the second one about week 8, and then the final one will be during finals week. Because we are on online format, that actually gives you more flexibility, and I'm kind of incorporating my understanding of how hard all of this is into this flexibility. Meaning that you will be taking the test online, they will be open book, okay, and you will have a period of 3 days in which to take the test. So you can say, geez, I'm not ready, I want to study 2 more days, and I'll take the test, on the last day that it's available, on the last day that iLearn keeps the test opened. And that's great for you, that's good. But there's a couple of things I want to say. First of all, we do know that when we say it's an open book test, that students often don't think they need to study, and it is absolutely wrong. You will fail the test if you just think it's open book anyway, I don't need to study. You're given about, I think we're deciding it's about an 80-minute, I'll give you the 80 minutes of the regular class period to do between 50 and 60 multiple choice questions. If you were to look up each of those questions to find the answer because you didn't study, you would not do well. You should be studying as if it's a regular exam taken in class. And yes, then you will have probably a few minutes to look things up to confirm. But the open book part of it, and you can use the book, you can use the notes, you can use the recordings if you need to, having access to those things should just kind of be a way for you to check the answers that you're giving on the exam. I'll tell you more about that, but it was a real problem in the spring. It was the first time we were teaching online. It was the first time we ever did an open book test, and people did not do well on that first exam because they assumed they really wouldn't need to study. You do need to study, and we'll talk more about that. So it's multiple choice questions, and I'm going to give you throughout our lectures some examples of multiple choice questions that are actually, don't tell anybody, right from the exam. So when you do those multiple choice questions, it would make sense for you to take a snapshot of the question because that is a question that's going to be on your exam. I think you'll learn the material anyway by doing the question in class. The questions we're going to be doing, we'll try one in just a second. We do through the poll mechanism of Zoom. It is anonymous. It has no bearing on your grade whatsoever, but it will give you a free question for your exam. You'll know probably about, I don't know, between 10 and 20 questions before each exam. Just take a picture of it and make sure you got the right answer written down, and you'll be good to go. Okay? What else do I want to say? Yeah, so you know, we don't know exactly what day window the exams will be held on, and that is because it depends on how quickly I go. I'm going to try to go extra. Well, I'll go fast but clear for you, because we find online Zoom lectures tend to go a little slower, but I've modified some of the material, so hopefully it won't go. So it should be after the first 3 weeks of the quarter, then you'll have your exam, so that would be during week 4. During the next 3 weeks, you know, it'd be week 7, week 8, sometime around there. I will certainly announce it, you know, a week at least before the exam. And then you'll know that your last exam is going to be during finals week sometime. They are not cumulative. The last exam is not cumulative at all. It's just based on a third of the material. They should be very straightforward. The questions will be derived from lecture and the book. There is material in the book that is not necessarily something I'll have time to cover in lecture. And importantly, your discussion sections. They will be presenting material that is not covered either in the book or in lecture. And we do that kind of to make sure that you attend. The discussion section should be a blast. We've got some great TAs this year to take you through the demonstrations and the open discussions and stuff like that. But we want you to attend. We want you to be there, hopefully synchronously, and if not, we want you to watch the videos. So we put new material in there that you have to get only from discussion section. What else did I want to say here? Oh yes, again, the practice questions that we'll try in just a second are right from the exam, so do a snapshot, a screen capture, however you want to do it. I should mention this, yes, the reason I have asterisks around there is because for some funky reason, when Zoom records these lectures, they do not record visually the questions, the poll questions. They just don't show up on the video. I mean, I'll talk you through the questions, so you'll get it on the video from me talking. But if you want a visual copy of these questions, you gotta go to the synchronous lecture and take a screenshot or something like that. You'll do okay, certainly, with those questions, because I will speak through them. I'll give you the possible answers and stuff out loud. But if you do well visually, then you might want to take a screen capture of those questions. And the book I put online for free as a PDF file. I know how difficult it is to get books now. I guess if you're into a hard copy of the book, do I have one somewhere? I think I have one to show you. You can get there. I think they're still available on Amazon. But I know you can't go to the bookstore. I didn't want to, make anybody have to order something directly to the bookstore. Just don't tell my publisher. Do I have one somewhere? Let me see. Somewhere. Do I have one? Let's see. Yeah, I do. This is what the book looks like right here. And, oh, hold on just a second. Nope. Hold on. No one panic. Turns out it's hot again after all these years. Just kidding. All right. Anyway, that was not worth the effort, was it? Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up the chat. It looks like there's 5 questions, but continue to ask questions if you want. Ask questions about the course and everything, and we'll just take a few minutes here and take a little break from the material before we get into the real content. And I'll answer some questions about the course, and then I'll do one of these practice polling questions so you see how those work as well. Okay, let's take a look here. Chat. All right. So Melissa asks, I can already tell you're going to be one of my favorite professors. That's very sweet, but I haven't even finished today. I'm going to get more and more boring as the lecture goes on, I promise. Let's see. Some people can't get into the Zoom meeting. Is that right? Okay, hold on just a second. They're saying they are unable to access this Zoom meeting, unable to get in. Thank you for telling me. I have no idea what is going on here.
Yeah, I tried to get into the
Superman
Zoom meeting, and apparently
logo
there's like
on your profile isn't for nothing. Yeah. Okay. Do it again. Oh, yeah, the book. Oh, cute. Oh, no, they were able to get in. Good. Yeah, it looks like the numbers went way up from about 10 minutes ago, which is good. I had a hard time getting into the Zoom through the link. It's hard to get in because you need to log into your UCR account. Okay, let's talk a little bit about that. I know a lot of you are freshmen. The first link wasn't working, saying, yes, I could not get in until I restarted the program. The code worked at the bottom, though. I was unable to get in. Tell them to copy and paste the link. That's a good idea. So if you click on the link and it doesn't take you to where you need to go, you can copy and paste it and then put it into the, the address window on your browser, and that should help. There's one right here. Actually, somebody just did that for you if you need it for next time. I haven't received the discussion link. Okay. A couple of people are raising their hands too. Let me go to those in just a second. The TAs didn't email you. Oh my gosh. I will tell them as soon as we're done with class tonight. I will absolutely tell them. I asked them on Wednesday or Tuesday to make sure they contact you. I was waiting on the Zoom link and it was saying recurring. It just kept looking for the meeting ID instead. The link at the bottom, highlight the link at the bottom of the invitation I sent you. You just can't click on the link. You need to manually log in and then paste the link. Okay, sorry about that. One of the TAs couldn't get his. If you're perceiving your cold background as a cold climate, would you feel cooler? Let me answer that in a question. Mine are posted on iLearn. Oh, Preston, mine are posted. Thank you. Preston Moat is one of our wonderful TAs, and you said mine are posted on iLearn under course discussion section page. Okay, so Preston, if you could just make sure you email that to everybody, that information, because some people, there are a lot of freshmen in the class and they don't know how to get in. Thank you for all this feedback, folks. Ever says, yes, I got a Zoom link from my TA. Melissa says, yeah, to corroborate, how many people can't get in? I just got an email from one of the TAs because he thinks you're late, meaning he can't get in either. Okay, I am not late, I am here. I am not sure what's going on. You might have to first get into your UCR account. This is new to me. Both quarters, this was not it. Just got it, sorry. Sorry, could not get in. No problem. I understand these things happen. This, hopefully, if everything goes well, will be on YouTube. It's not a problem. It's good to see so many people here now. It's really very nice. Let me see what else we got here. Okay. Some people raise their hands. Okay. If the folks that raise their hand wouldn't mind putting their question in chat, that would be easier, I think, for all of us. I will continue going to chat and we can do it that way. It's difficult in such a large class, so we have about 150 out of the 250 people here now, to actually address you through the video. It takes a long time and it's a bit cumbersome. So I prefer doing it from chat. If anyone has any real problems with that, let me know. But please ask your questions from chat. That would be the best way. Only way you can see our messages, by the way, yeah, Dylan, a TA, just email me and he thinks you are late. So I don't know if he can't get the Zoom link either. If you don't mind emailing him back, say no. I'm not sure how to get everybody the link right now. I guess I could try emailing everybody again, but I don't know if that's going to work. I think the problem is, 145 folks got in somehow. Okay, here is, I need to use the meeting ID, not the link. It says that I struggled to get in, but it wasn't the first link, but the one on the bottom of the invitation. Okay. You know what I'm going to do? Okay. Let me stop sharing. I'm sorry about this, everybody. I did not expect this to be a problem. Let me go ahead and log in here and talk amongst yourselves. Okay. I am going to send out an email to everybody. The link at the bottom of the invitation. I'm having trouble seeing where that is. Let me try. Yeah, when I click on it, it works fine. I don't know what that's about. Yep, it worked great just now. I'm going to send everybody in the class a link, and hopefully this will work. I apologize about this. Shoot. Okay. Here we go, everybody. I'm sending it. Hopefully the rest of the class will get in. Don't know why this happened. This definitely didn't happen last time. Okay, hopefully that will take care of it. Everyone should have gotten a link. Yeah, I'm getting some things from people. All right. Okay, everybody, I'm back. I'm so sorry this is happening. Let me just go back to chat and see if there's anything else. Okay, just copied it and pasted. Don't worry, it's the first day. Makes me say thank you. I feel better. This is the link I use. I got into the code. Students can also copy the meeting ID. Great, great, great. It must have been for some reason the link I made just didn't work, and I'm so sorry about that. This happened. Like I'm going to be a meeting only for UCR. Okay, I figured out a problem. When I hover over the hyperlink in the announcement, it shows a different Zoom meeting ID than the one that's on the screen. Okay, hopefully the one I just emailed everybody is going to help, and I'm really sorry about that. Okay, yeah, the numbers are going up. They're going up. 200. That's good. And hopefully that took care of it. So sorry about that, everybody. That definitely hasn't happened before. But what I'm going to do is more people are signing in is I'm going to go ahead and show you how this polling function works. Okay, so here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to ask you a very simple question, and you'll see this poll come up. You'll go ahead and click on the answer, and then I will get the answer, and then I will show everybody the answer, and that's how we will do the practice test questions, or actually real test questions, throughout the quarter. Yeah, the number continues to go up. I'm glad I sent that email out. I'm so sorry about the problem. So here we go. Here's the question. What year are you in at UCR? A freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior? And I want to see if most of you are in fact freshmen, like I've been assuming. So hopefully you can see this poll now. So go ahead and respond, and let's see which percentage of you are freshmen. A lot of you. Great. This is probably for some of you your very first college class, and I feel honored that is the case. Okay, you can see, I think there's a timer. There's certainly a timer there for me. You can see the timer too, hopefully, but what I do is I usually give about a minute for people to answer. And again, this is all unofficial. I'm not recording anyone's specific answers or anything. If you get it wrong, it's not a problem. I don't see that. I just get the percentage of each response, so then we can go back and talk about it. Okay, looks like a large majority of you have answered, so we can stop it at a minute. And yes, you are freshmen. I will now share the results and show you that. So the most popular answer is, in fact, the first one, that you are freshmen, a lot of you. And I'm very happy to welcome the sophomores, juniors, and seniors. But again, for the freshmen, I just really empathize with you folks. My son is doing his best, but you know, he's thinking, my gosh, I've always looked forward to going to college, and this is what it's going to be like. Let's just hope. I mean, I think winter quarter is going to be like this too, and possibly spring, but next year at this time, I'm knocking on wood, we'll be back to normal, and you'll make up for the year you had to do this way. You'll have extra fun, and you'll learn extra amounts of material and be extra engaged and extra intellectually discussing things with your friends and all that great college stuff. Okay. Great. Let me just see if there are any other questions. This is a good time, by the way. You know, it looks like we got much of the login issue taken care of. So let's see if there's any questions about the tests, about the kind of the procedure of the course, anything like that. Yes. Let's see. Different zooming than what is on the screen. Oh, someone asked if that's if I was testing you. Yeah. Everything that goes wrong in a psychology class is, in fact, a test, a psychology test on you. No, I'm kidding. I wish I could say that. This is just a follow-up. Okay, where do I find the textbook to download? It is, I think, it's certainly on the iLearn page. I think I put it under either a link, the links on the side that says textbook. If not, materials. Just fish around for a few minutes, you'll find it. And it's just a big PDF file, and it's just organized just like the book. It is the book, essentially, okay? And it's free. Okay. Yeah, so is the link I sent you, I'm going to have to absolutely sort this out before Tuesday, and I will send it again. But yes, that is a link. We will be using the same link for every class. Absolutely. I will make sure I send it to you in the right format for next time. Okay. When will you post the first class assignment? There are no assignments. I know some of you have come up late, and please, for those of you that did come in late, it's my fault somehow. I don't know how I did it. I'm sorry. But really, I want the questions now just to be from folks that had to, that were here in the beginning. Everything's been videotaped, so you'll be able to go back and look. Are we able to answer most of the exam questions from the lecture material? Yeah, I will tell you right now, a majority of the questions are taken from lecture, but there are still a handful of questions, I don't know, 5 to 10 on an exam taken from the book that aren't in lecture or discussion section, and then 5 to 10 questions that are just from discussion section and not covered either in the book or the lecture. So it's important that you watch the lectures, that you read the chapters of the book, and the lectures will follow the chapter order in the book, and that you go to your discussion sections or watch the discussion sections. If you decide to buy the physical book, is there a discount code available? No, but it's pretty cheap now. It's 9-10 years old, and at this point you can get a good discount for the book. I think I don't remember the price, but I do remember I think the hardcovers are actually cheaper than the soft covers because they're harder to get rid of, and I think it's under $5, and that would be Amazon, or I'm sure there's other ways of getting it too. It's $10 on Amazon, but there might be either used versions or third-party sellers. It's worth every penny, I promise. Are discussions required? No. You're not going to, there's no attendance at all. I can say a little bit about this. No attendance taken during lecture, no attendance taken during discussion section. You do not have to have your videos on. I see some of you do, some of you don't. That's perfectly fine. Whatever. It doesn't make a difference. Although, again, what I'm going to tell you is that there is now research suggesting that people who do attend the synchronous lectures, the synchronous discussion sections, tend to do a little better, tend to find the course more interesting, and like the material better. So if you can, I suggest it. We're going to have fun. I promise. There's other things besides the burning book that will be really fun for us. Okay, and we can do this chat thing. And I'm going to stop every few minutes during lecture, or every 15 to 20 minutes during lecture, and we'll chat. You'll ask questions. I'll give you answers. And in fact, let me say this before we start going into today's material. Feel free to put a chat question in at any time during the lecture. I won't answer it until we're ready to go to the chat. Okay, but I will answer all of them, and it will be ways for us to recap the material. If in fact you ask a question early in that section of the material, it will be a way for us to go back and refresh that. It's not a problem at all. Feel free to do it. I will address you by first name, and we'll definitely have that type of interactivity. Okay, I made a big group chat for all the students in this class. Would it be okay for me to share the link with everyone? Yeah, sure. If you want a big group chat, if you want to talk about the course material and all that sort of stuff, as long as it's related to the course. I don't want people advertising whatever on there. It has to be related to the course. Also, we can't see the chat. I think only you can. That's fine. Yes, please. What's the group chat? I don't think I'm allowed to show you the chat. Host only. Oh, yeah. Everyone publicly. Participant can chat with everyone. Let me look into this. I think you're right. I can make this visible to everybody. I don't know if there's a problem with that. I don't know if there's any, because people have their names there. And I'm going to tell you everything, well, almost everything. If it's repeated questions, I won't go through them again. But I will be very thorough on what's on the chat. But okay, it's only letting us message you privately instead of everyone. Other professors have let everybody do it. All right, should we try it? Here I go, everybody. Close your eyes. Here we go. Everyone publicly and privately. All right. Don't say anything bad about anybody because everybody can see it. We'll see how this works. Oh, I was lonely. Hi. Everyone's saying, okay, great. Have a blast. Make sure it's appropriate. If I see anything inappropriate, I will stop it. Okay. Okay. Have fun, everybody. Okay, we will try this now. The only problem is when I get a question, if I'm having trouble finding it because there's so much discussion between people, we might have to rethink it. Okay, everybody happy? Good. All right, then we are going to go back to the material. Okay, just give me a second to reset here. Yeah. All right. Here we go. What's this course about? You're probably wondering what this course is about. Is it just Rosenblum fooling around in the snow? I wish. It is not. This course is about perception, but it's about a very unique type of perception. It's about a perception that we're unaware of having. We perceive the world consciously, and you probably have a sense that we perceive the world or information about the world gets in unconsciously as well. And that's absolutely true, right? Things get in, kind of under our conscious awareness. But really what this course is about is understanding that there are actually entire channels of information that get in under our awareness. We have skills that are kind of like skills that we know animals use to perceive the world. You're going to be very surprised by some of these things, I think you'll find. So you're perceiving much more than you realize. And your consciousness can only deal with so much at a time. But boy, your brain is doing so much perceptually all the time that you'll be really, really impressed with what you're doing. And more than that, these things are happening under the level of awareness. We call them implicit perceptual abilities, meaning that they're not explicit and open to awareness. Okay, they're implicit. They're kind of hinted at. But what happens in these cases is sometimes what we attribute to a gut feeling about a person, what we attribute to an intuition, is sometimes based on true physical information that's getting into the brain, that's then being processed by the brain, but is just not making conscious awareness about that process. The generalized information about a person, about a situation, might give us a kind of intuitions. I'm getting the heebie-jeebies here. Something doesn't seem right. I'm not sure I trust this person. All those sort of things. Intuitions can be very much based on real perceptual processes your brain is using. Okay, these are called subliminal, and I don't know if subliminal still has the same connotations it did when I was going to college, which was just a couple years ago. I'm kidding. Subliminal when I went to college meant that it got under our conscious awareness, but it had a way, it had a power to almost hypnotize us to do things. So, when I was young, there were ideas that in movies there were little frames of products that were being shown to us at too fast a rate for us to consciously be aware of it. However, it had an effect on us. It made us want to drink a Coke or want to buy Burger King or something like that. I guess movies and TV aren't even that hidden about it anymore. They'll just place it right there in the film. But there was something very intimidating about that term, subliminal, and I don't want it to be like that here. It just formally means below our level of attention, awareness. Lyman means, in this case, kind of where we are conscious or aware of something, and sub means it's below that. That's all it means. That this information, these channels of information, are getting into our brains without us having a conscious awareness of it. Okay? That's all that means. As I just hinted at a few seconds ago, we share these skills with animals. So you probably know about this. So, you know, that dogs can smell things that we can't smell, and bats and dolphins can hear things that we can't hear. Dogs do, right? They can hear higher frequencies. And yes, they have different anatomies, different neurophysiologies and things like that. But many of those sorts of things that animals can do, we can do to some degree too. And you'll learn that right off the bat when we start talking about bats and how they hear and how we hear like bats. Okay. The thing is, we are often, those skills that we share with animals, like these exotic skills, are often skills that we don't have kind of conscious awareness of having. So you'll see when we get into smell, smell is amazing, that we are able to smell things about people, whether people are related to us, whether they have a genetic makeup that might be compatible with ours, so we have healthy offspring. These are things that we know animals can do all the time through smell, and there is evidence that we do this too. Okay, so these skills are shared with animals, which is really, really cool. Okay. And then we're going to spend a lot of time talking about this fact, that many, if not all of these skills can be enhanced. So when you learn that, in fact, you can use sound like bats, you're also going to meet somebody who has learned to improve this skill to the extent that it is his main means of locomotion, his main means of getting around the world. And you'll learn from sound engineers, from folks who have had to improve their taste of wine, their palates, to the degree that they can know things about when the wine was bottled and in what vineyard and what part of Italy, all these things from a taste of wine. That takes a lot of practice, as you can absolutely imagine. So these hidden skills, a lot of them are kind of, they're floating around and we're using them to some degree. But then there are people that have learned to actually kind of tap into them and make them really, really refined and tremendously powerful. And we're going to talk a little bit about the fact that you've done this to some degree too, just in your kind of, learning throughout your life. Learning a new sport, learning a new musical instrument, it's going to, change you in a way that it's going to improve some of these hidden perceptual skills in ways you might not be quite aware of. We will be spending a lot of time learning about these through perceptual experts. And if you've had a chance to look at the first few pages of the book, you'll see that the book is designed around interviews that I was able to do with perceptual experts, people who either from a sensory loss have learned to kind of compensate using other senses. People who are blind have used their hearing. People who are deaf have learned to use sight for lip reading, all that sort of stuff. But also people for professional reasons have had to do the same thing, like the wine connoisseurs, like the sound engineers that work on movies and work on music recordings. They have learned kind of to fine tune these perceptual skills for the purpose of their professions. And it was by far, I'll tell you this, when I wrote the book, it was by far the most fun part. I think there's about 30 interviews with these perceptual experts in the book. And I did twice as many of those. Just I had to, kind of cut some out because I had to fit everything in the book. And my discussions with these guys were just tremendous. I talked to as you'll learn, I talked to a blind, deaf individual who was able to understand people by touching their face, by touching the lips and the jaw and the vocal cords down here. And as I did my interview, he touched my face the entire time, and we had an amazing conversation about what his experience as a deafblind person is and how he has learned to understand people and be able to kind of infer emotion from doing that type of thing. It's just so interesting. So my favorite part of the book, you'll see, was the interviews of these amazing people that I met. But there's some real scholarship here too, meaning that we're going to use these really fun things, the interviews with these experts, the kind of stories about how people have improved these skills, all these secret things that our brains are doing all the time to kind of give us intuitions, to kind of give us gut feelings of things. It's all fun stuff, but we're going to learn some kind of, real material at the same time. And these are new concepts, relatively new, 10 years, 15-year-old concepts about the brain, about perception, that are exemplified by everything we'll be talking about. So, for example, you probably know this term. This term has been around for a while now, neuroplasticity. But it has just been an absolute revolution in brain science to know that as we learn something, as we become better at something, that our brains change in predictable ways. And we know something about how to maintain those skills through how the brain changes. So neuroplasticity is just kind of concrete changes in the brain, and we're going to learn that that's a very important part of how these experts, how these perceptual experts are able to achieve what they achieve. So we will learn something about the kind of general strategies of the brain in changing itself to make us better perceivers. We'll also learn about another concept I think you're going to find very interesting, and this is still relatively new. It's something my lab has looked at to some degree, and that is the fact that we are all consummate imitators. And what I mean by that, when I say imitation or doing impressions of people, you think about Alec Baldwin doing Trump, or Maya Rudolph's going to be doing Kamala Harris. I guess, does it start this weekend, next weekend, or something like that? Saturday Night Live. Yeah, I'm really excited to see all that. These are professional, impressionists or imitators. But it turns out that we are always doing a little imitating of each other, not so it's offensive, but just a little bit. And we, in a sense, kind of mirror other people's behavior just a tiny bit. And in doing so, it allows us to facilitate social interaction. We are actually able to be more successful in our social interactions because of this. And it also it allows us to be able to actually see the world more accurately, okay, by doing kind of some sort of implicit imitation of what we're seeing somebody else do. We're able to make perceptual judgments about what they're doing more accurately. It helps our social interactions, and it helps our very basic perceptual skills. Okay? And then finally, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics, and it is something that we study in my lab, and that is multisensory perception, what I'm calling here multisensory primacy. And, I don't know how you guys have learned about the brain, maybe in biology class or, a health class, or, maybe you've taken a psychology class along the way. My son took psychology in high school. Very often in those classes, you learn about there's a part of the brain that's responsible for seeing, a part of the brain that's responsible for hearing, for touch and motor skills and all that sort of stuff. And it's kind of a convenient way of parsing the brain up. But what we have learned over the last 10, 15 years is it's not really a very accurate way of kind of dividing up the brain conceptually. Okay? Because the brain is really built around multisensory information. And we know now that the part of the brain that we long thought was for just vision can be affected by hearing and can be affected by touch and smell and taste. And that goes for all the parts of the brain. The parts of the brain that we thought were responsible for hearing can be affected by sight and be affected by touch and all those things. And it's really the case that the brain doesn't care too much about which sensory channel this information comes. It cares more about what's in the world, and in some ways doesn't even know where it's getting its information. You're going to see a great example about that in just a second. Okay? And so that is what I'm after here. These are the big topics. This is what the content I want you to get out of the course, right? I said there's something even more kind of overarching I want you to get out of the course. It is your kind of awareness that you can use your intellect to kind of help yourself through difficult times. That's great. But these are the content issues, and you'll see how they kind of unfold as we go on. Okay, so let's go ahead and start one of these. We're going to go right into this. Oops. Yes, I'm going to change my slides here. And we're going to talk about what I had just mentioned, which was bats. So you know about bats a little bit. Let me make my image a little bigger here. Okay. So you know a little bit about bats that you know. I don't know if you guys have bats in your backyard. We got them. I don't know. I'm not sure why. Maybe because they know I'm really interested in echolocation, but they're back there on you know, fall, spring nights, summer nights sometimes, and they're so cool. They fly so fast, and they fly between, you know, branches of trees, and they telephone wires and all these sort of things. And you might know that they do this really well at night, where vision isn't very good for them. You know, they do see fine, but their most, you know, kind of vigorous hunting time is at night, where they're going after mosquitoes and other things that they like to eat. And the way they do this is through sound. They send out a little bat signal, yeah, like Batman, right? A little tweet that kind of goes out into the world and comes back to them and tells them what's out there. Like, tweet, there's a telephone pole, I should be careful of that. Tweet, there's a branch, I should be careful of that. Tweet, there's a mosquito, I'm going in for the kill. And they are amazing if you have a chance to watch how bats hunt and get prey, you know, through an infrared camera or something like that. It's just amazing. And we know other things, animals do this too. So dolphins and whales, we use this idea of sending out signals and allowing the signals then to come back to tell them information. Whales can do it over a great distance. It's a very different type of signal, of course, than the one the bat emits. The same with dolphins, porpoises. They'll send out signals. In fact, that little bump on the top of a dolphin's head is, in fact, for, you know, kind of that whole process. It allows them to get that information back and all that sort of stuff. It's a very cool way of kind of navigating the world if, you know, there's not a lot of light visual information available, whether it's dark or whether it's deep in the ocean, and there's not a lot of light to kind of guide you. Echolocation is a great way to work. Okay. It's not just animals. It is us. And we've known this for a long time. We've known this from the 1950s. And let me give you the little story. There was some scientists started to kind of observe some of their colleagues or friends that were blind or very visually impaired. And what they noticed is that they would be able to kind of, without using a cane, without using a dog, they'd be able to walk down a hallway and stop before they got to the end and hit the wall. Right. And, you know, they'd see this again and again, and they say, well, you got to find out how they're doing this. I mean, some of these folks are completely blind, and you know, if they're not completely blind, they put blindfolds on them to make sure there was no light whatsoever. And then they'd ask them, how are you able to do this? And they say, I don't know. I'm not quite sure what's going on. I know when I get to the end of the hallway, I kind of feel like there's something in front of me. I feel like there's some sort of object or a big thing, like a surface coming at me, my face almost. And they said, what do you mean your face? I said, you know, when I get close to the wall, I feel my face kind of tense up a little bit. So maybe that's how I'm doing it. Maybe I'm feeling something on my skin here on my face that's kind of telling me that there's something in front of me. And they said, okay, maybe that is how you do it. Let's call this then facial vision. And we'll test this to make sure that is, in fact, the way you're doing this. Now, What I have there is regarding, that's RE colon stands for regarding awareness. Because I want us to keep in mind the fact that these are blind individuals who are able to do this very well. They are really able to walk to a wall and stop before they get there without hurting themselves, right? And their awareness of how they're able to do it is, well, first of all, it's very unclear. They don't really know. And if they say that, I mean, if they have to make a guess, they'll say, I think I'm feeling something on my face. I feel like these are like air currents or something maybe that are changing. That's what they think is going on. But they then took some of these folks on and say, okay, let's test this. This will be fun. This was actually at Cornell. There's some great pictures of this. I should find them for you. It's in one of these beautiful old buildings, with wood floors and wood cabinets. And there's a kind of scaffolding inside this high ceilinged room. Everything's just beautiful old 1950s, 40s probably construction. And they show people, they show these people that are walking down like paths that have been made in this big laboratory room. They're testing. They tested it in 1950, 1956. Don't worry about years, by the way. For those of you interested. What they did is they said, okay, let's try to get rid of this information on your face and see if it, in fact, prevents you from doing this skill. So I think what they did is at first they took some just cardboard masks and put it over people's face, the blind folks' face, and they asked them then to walk down a path that was set up in the laboratory, and then just to stop before they hit the wall. And they were right there to make sure no one was going to get hurt. And then, in fact, the blind folks had their hands out to make sure that if they did hit the wall, they wouldn't hurt themselves. And so they put these cardboard masks on their face and they start walking down. And in fact, they're still able to stop right before they get to the wall without using their hands. They stop right before they get there. Say, all right, we thought we got rid of that facial vision information. Let's try something else. Let's keep the cardboard masks on these folks and let's put a fan in the room right there at the end. So the air currents are completely messed up. This should completely get rid of any extra kind of, like air pressure information on the face or wind current information on the face. And they do that, ask the blind folks to walk down the little pathway, and they're still able to stop right before they get to the end of, right before they get to the wall without touching or anything. It's like, no, I think the wall's right here. I can still sense it. I said, well, you shouldn't be able to do this. You're not getting any information on your face. And you say, well, maybe it's not my face, but I still know that wall is there. So what do? Well, by kind of just coincidence, one of the blind folks that was helping with this saying, I'm getting a little tired. Would you mind if the next time we do this, I take off my shoes? They say, sure. Yeah, thank you for, we appreciate this so much that you're here and that you're performing this again and again for us. This is just great. Yes, take off your shoes, please. So they're in their stocking feet. Now, there's something I need to tell you about 1950 shoes. Even if you're just going to a laboratory and kind of just trying a bunch of stuff, you still got dressed up in your nice fancy shoes back then. So they were hard-soled shoes like the type you wore to your prom, right? And they were on a wooden floor. And when the shoes were off and they were just in their stocking feet, there was much less sound. And then when they went to walk down the pathway towards the wall, they would often touch or come right at the wall. They would not be able to perform the skill they had done before, suggesting that those footsteps that were loud when they were wearing shoes, that were loud because it was shoes against a floor, were no longer available, and they were not able to perform the task. In other words, they realized that, in fact, it was something to do with the sound of their shoes that was telling them where the wall was. And they thought, oh my gosh, we've got something really cool here. They are doing something kind of, inadvertently, kind of implicitly, with the sound of their feet and the reflections of that sound off the wall. So they had him put his shoes back on and walked, and lo and behold, no problem, they could do it. Say, okay, this is great. Take your shoes off, and now what we're going to do is we're going to play different sounds through headphones to completely take the sound away. And at that point, nobody could do the task. When they had sound that would be in the headphones that blocked out the sound of the reflections, people couldn't do the task at all. And this is human echolocation. And in fact, it is what they thought after they did these experiments. It is the sound of their footsteps leaving where they're stepping, going to the wall, coming off the wall, and bouncing back into the ears that allow the blind to do this. Okay. Now, very quickly, before I go on and talk about more of this history, I wanted to go back to this awareness term, right? This idea of awareness being a kind of a key issue here. These are perceptual experts, aren't they? I mean, these are blind individuals. You're going to see a really great example of a perceptual expert like this in just a second. But the folks in these experiments and the blind people that can do this with ease, these are perceptual experts. But they're not aware. They were not aware of how they were performing the skill. They thought it was face currents, face pressures or air currents on the skin or whatever. But it wasn't that. It was sound. They don't experience this echolocation as sound. They experience as, I don't know, something is coming towards me. I'm not sure how I'm doing it, but I know there's something big right in front of me. It's not like they're aware. They don't have the introspective kind of access to those sounds, but it is sound nonetheless. So their awareness isn't really very good about how they're able to do this. Their skill is great, but their awareness of how they're performing the skill is not. So we know a lot about this now, okay? In fact, we know that canes, white canes that you see folks walking around with, have tips that are designed to be very clicky. Okay, can you see the tip here? Yeah. It's actually, I think it looks like a tip that might be on the bottom of a school chair or something like that. But it is flexible and it makes a nice click. Can you hear this? Okay, it's a little far away. I'm trying to think of something else I can click. Hopefully you can hear those clicks. But when you're on the ground and clicking, it makes a great sound for echolocation. It leaves where that contact is made. It goes out into the world. It then the reflections of that sound come back and tell the blind listener what's out in the world. Okay, so in a sense, you don't have to wear these hard-soled shoes anymore, right? I think most people are wearing rubber-soled shoes, the blind the same. But with your cane, you can make these really great clicks to induce the same type of sound structure. And then there's a whole bunch of folks who've really learned to do this well. Okay, and what they will typically do is not use a cane. They will use what we'll call mouth clicks. And where's my microphone? Right here. It sounds something like this. Like if you're riding a horse and you wanted to go faster, and you would make that sound. Cowboys do, at least in the movies, right? Get along. Like that. They make that type of sound, and they use that as the sound to kind of create this echolocation information. Okay. It's just absolutely amazing. And I will show you, and actually this is the first video I'm going to show you, and I realize that videos don't come through well in Zoom, but I'm going to show it to you anyway. Hopefully you'll get a sense. This is my friend, Daniel Kish, who you will read about in the first full chapter of the book. He is riding a bike. He has been blind from birth. He had retinoblastomas, which are a cancer of the retina, and he was born with it. And so he had really no light vision at all from birth. They then did remove his eyes so they could save his life because of the cancer. And he's had artificial eyes since, I guess maybe the year of age 1.5. And as you can see in these images here, he rides a bike. He did since he was 10 years old. But he does more than that. He guides, he does mountain bike guiding. He guides other blind individuals. And as you'll read in the book, I was fortunate enough to go out on a mountain bike excursion with him. And he rides around and makes clicking sounds. The thing about the clicking sounds is, of course, it's more flexible. You don't need a cane, so you can ride a bike, right? But also you can manipulate the clicking sound. You can make it louder or softer depending on the environment. At one point we got into a Jamba Juice together. And you know what Jamba Juice is like on the inside. These terrible sounds coming from the machines. And so he started clicking really loud in order to get around. But he'll also kind of not just change how loud it is, he'll change kind of, how sharp it is, how much kind of bass it sounds it has. He's really learned to kind of use the right click for the right environment. He now goes around the world. He has an organization. He now goes around the world teaching blind children how to echolocate. And it's a difficult thing. It's a very difficult thing. The most difficult thing about it, he says, is to convince the parents to allow the children to really use it as their main means of navigation, like he's learned. Parents, I could imagine, I'd be very nervous about my blind child not having a cane or not grabbing my arm, but instead going click, click, click in order to, avoid things that could potentially be harmful. But that's the way he learned, and he has to talk parents into letting the kids do this, and then he'll take the kids out and he'll kind of guide them on how to do this. Okay. I should have mentioned a couple of things about his bike riding. I think you'll find very interesting. Here, let me show if I can I show this to you again? Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so you can see he's riding around his neighborhood. Oh, I should mention he was the reason I know him is because he was an undergraduate here at UCR, and then he went to get his master's in San Bernardino, and there he is riding around San Bernardino. Anyway, he knows where he is as he's riding his bike along the streets through a number of different means. I mean, he knows, like, if he's coming to an intersection, if he can hear the cars going by and things like that. But when it comes to the echolocation, like he's using as he navigates this court here, this basketball court, he knows where the poles are by clicking and kind of getting a sense for what everything is. When he's riding around his neighborhood, he will count the driveways to know how much further he needs to ride to get back to his driveway. How does he count the driveways? Well, he's learned that driveways kind of are experienced differently. I wouldn't say he experiences this as a sound different, really, but he'll click and say, oh, there's a driveway, click, there's grass, click, there's another driveway. And so what he's able to tell basically is the texture of the ground using this sort of technique, which is just amazing. It really is amazing. If you have questions about Daniel, this would be a great time to ask. Go ahead and type them in. I'll be happy to answer them for you. But I want to get through this next little piece on the slide before we actually answer those questions, because here comes something really cool. You do this too. Okay. You don't do this as well as Daniel Kish, so I don't want anyone, putting on a blindfold after lecture, jumping on their bikes and saying, I'm going to do this just like Rosenblum said I can. Don't do that, okay? But you'll learn in section, whether you have section tomorrow on Friday or Monday, that you have some skill at this too. And we did some experiments in my own lab, and this was many, many years ago. But I know a lot of you freshmen haven't been on campus yet. For those folks that have been on campus, this spot right here is right behind the biology building. I can't remember the name of that building now, but it's right behind biology. There's a really kind of nice little green courtyard there. And that's where we did this experiment. We brought intro psych students to this spot and asked them to, first of all, we told them about echolocation. We say, this is going to be hard for you to believe, but you can act like a bat and use echoed sounds to get around. And people go, no way. We say, yeah, no, it really does work. And then what we did is we had them put a blindfold on and then try walking to a wall that we moved into different positions and stopped right before they got there. We had someone protecting them to make sure they weren't going to get hurt. They walk very slowly with their hands out, and no one ever gets hurt in these sort of experiments. We told them about clicking, and we're hoping somebody in these experiments would try clicking, but we didn't want them to feel self-conscious because it was a public place. Most people didn't click. They would do things like this. Hello, testing 1, 2, hello. a lot of people did this. I feel really dumb. I hope none of my friends are watching. They would make sound, and that's really the only thing we needed them to do. Okay. And what we found is after 15 minutes of practice, every undergraduate, sighted undergraduate with a blindfold on, was able to do this. And, we'll see if you can do this in the discussion section tomorrow or Monday, depending on when you're scheduled. We will see if you can do this. It's 15 minutes. You might not have that much time in discussion section, but I think you'll get a sense that that information is there. Okay, cool. Now, we did this, you'll learn a little bit about this experiment that we did in your discussion section, but I want to tell you about some of these other experiments that were done in the 1950s. Not only did they have people walk to a wall once they kind of discovered this skill, they had people try other things. They wanted to see if people could just, were they kind of restricted to echolocating, where something was as they moved towards it, or could they judge other things about objects in front of them that reflected their sound? So they asked people, both blind and sighted, who were blindfolded, to do this, to judge its distance, an object's distance, but also to judge the shape of the object, and get this, the texture of the object. And the shape would be whether it was a disc like this, or a square that's about the same size. Oh, I should say they also did size on there too. I didn't put that on there. But is this thing in front of you? You can see they're wearing he's wearing a blindfold here. This is now a disc that's been suspended in front of him. And you can tell these are scientists from the 1950s, from all the old movies that you've seen. And they say, okay, here's a new object in front of you. Can you echolocate? Can you make a sound, a click, or whatever you want to do? And tell us something about this object. And the person would go, click, 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 or hello, testing, testing, testing. That object in front of me is round. I'd say it's the disc. They were given a choice of 3 objects, so it's a narrow choice. I would say it's about maybe 3 or 4 feet in front of me. It's medium-sized. And it's made out of wood. They were given 3 choices. It's made out of wood. Okay, next one. This one's a square, and it's made out of metal. Next one. This one is the triangle, I believe, and it's covered with some sort of material. They actually took a piece of wood, cut it into a triangle, and put some kind of low carpeting on it. Okay. And people could do this, okay, all through sound. Whether they were, the blind, in fact, could do it better, maybe not surprisingly. But the sighted folks could do this too. Not perfectly, certainly. They made mistakes, but they could do it better than chance guessing. So if there are 3 textures and they're guessing one of the 3, 33% would be kind of chance performance. They were getting closer to 50%, which isn't perfect certainly, but it is statistically above chance. Okay, which is really amazing. These are skills they never realized they had the ability to do. It took some practice. They got better as they went along. There's no question about it. But this is something your brain can do. From sounds that are reflected from objects that don't make any sound themselves, you could potentially determine the distance of an object, its size, which I should have put up there, the shape of an object, and what it's made out of. Whether it's a little metal plate, whether it's a piece of wood, or whether it's something covered with carpeting. Okay. And you can do this whether you're moving, or like in the experiments that we discussed here, as people are moving towards the board, or stationary. And you'll learn a little bit more about whether people are better when they're moving in stationary or stationary in discussion section. You'll learn about that in discussion section, but I wanted just to point that out here. Okay. Now, I think this is a good place for us to take a little break and see if there are questions, and then do one of our polling questions. Oh my God, look at these questions. Okay, this is the first quarter I've ever done this where I opened it up to everybody. Let's see if I can navigate through these chat questions. Oh my God. Oh boy, this might not work, folks. I'm so sorry. Okay. Okay, you know, folks, I'm glad you're making, you know what I'll do? How about this? How about in the beginning of the class, I open this up to everybody so they can talk with each other. But during the lecture, I think I'm going to have to restrict it just for questions to me because I can't find your questions here. Okay, I'm glad you're all happy to see each other. Okay. All right, everybody. Okay, so Ariel, okay, so here come some questions for me. Can you stop the comments because it's distracting? I am doing that right now. Folks, I'm sorry. I know you want to see your friends. I will open it up in the beginning, but presume we can chat with host only. There we go. Good. Okay, here come your important questions. I know, let's see. Okay. Okay, so Ariel asks, should we memorize the names of the people you listed in examples? No. I might, you don't, I'm not going to ask you a question like, who is the expert echolocator who leads mountain bike trips? I will, and the answer would be Daniel Kish. I will never ask you a question like that. I might use his name in a question. So Daniel Kish can echolocate using this sort of technique or something like that. I might use the name, but I'm not going to, just to kind of give you a way of remembering the example. But I will not ask you dates or names of individuals. Okay. I had a question about whether deaf people use vibrations instead of sounds. We will be talking about that. And I think, one of the great examples I kind of already hinted at, that this deaf-blind individual was able to perceive my speech from using vibrations of the neck. But we'll talk about other examples of that when we get into that. Thank you for the question. Can't see the name there. Okay. Johnny asked, do blind people use sound to imagine? Now that is a great question, Johnny. So in other words, since Daniel's never really experienced visual space before, how does he experience things that he would then imagine? And it's very unclear. And you can imagine how difficult a question that would be to test. It's a difficult thing to really ask. But typically, if people have had vision and then lost their sight, later on in life, or even after a few years of childhood, they will say that a lot of what I experience when I imagine things is kind of a visual sort of imagination. Whether if somebody has never had a visual experience before, it's unclear how they experience the world. Okay, when will we be notified? Okay, I believe your discussion section information should be on either Banner or iLearn. I will remind our faithful TAs to make sure to contact people. I will do that as soon as the class is over. So, can deaf people use vibrations instead of sounds? Yes, we will talk about that. Thank you, Carrie. Marvin asked, does echolocation refer only to when you have your eyes closed, or can you sense when you're approaching something by memory? Great question, and you are going to actually address this tomorrow. So in order to perform these experiments that we did to show that people were actually using echolocation, we had to continually move the board to make sure people weren't counting their footsteps to get there, right? Because that's something they can do. And I'm sure it's something that Daniel Kish does and a lot of blind people will do, that they have a sense of where something is, not only by sound, but by knowing, not even consciously how many footsteps, but by knowing how far they need to walk. But, in experiments like this, there have to be control conditions to make sure that echolocation is another way that they're able to do this. Very good question. Okay. Alicia asks, was there a difference between the people who are actually blind, those that were blindfolded? Like the one group? Yes, very good question. We will be talking about this more, what being blind does to the brain, all that sort of thing. And what you do find is, in fact, people who are blind are usually better at these sort of skills. Absolutely. Isn't sound? Yes, sound is vibrations, but I think the question, Batul asked me this, isn't the use of sound basically using vibrations? That's absolutely true. I think the question had to do with other types of vibrations, though not the ones that are actually in the air affecting our ears, but very good point. What is the best way to take notes during the lecture? You're going to have access to this through YouTube, but I would say, I forgot to say this. All the slides are available to you folks. And so if you want to print them out or, have them on your computer and then take notes on the actual slides, All the slides of the course, except for some minor changes as we go on, are already available to you. You can take notes right on the slides, and you can write things down that clarify what the comments, what the text on the slides are saying. Wow, there's so many great questions. Okay, let's see. Kyla asks, can changes to the brain, like maybe mental, emotional trauma or physical harm, enhance, diminish these abilities? Wow, that is some question. I don't know if there's a lot of research on that, but, and I will find this for you. Now, Daniel, as you can imagine, he's gotten a lot of press. He's been in tons of interviews. He has a wonderful TED Talk, if you like that type of thing. He did a great interview with this radio series called the Hidden Brain, I think it's called. It's a NPR podcast. An amazing interview. I've seen many interviews with him because I'm friends with him. They actually went into his emotional experience, both as it pertains to echolocation and his life. And you might, I'll post it, you might get some intuitions about that there. I don't know if other things like emotional trauma would affect this sort of thing. I imagine it would in some cases. It's a very good question. I heard that blind schizophrenic people have episodes where whatever is talking to them uses sign language instead of speech. You mean maybe deaf schizophrenics? Because a deaf schizophrenic would typically be signing. So yes, yeah, I could imagine that would absolutely be the case. That's a very interesting question. Yes, you have discussion sections tomorrow, Brock. Marvin asks, one thing I've wondered is that when blind people cannot see that they usually use their sound, can they zone out other sounds in order to focus on their own? Oh, that's a great question, Marvin, that I'm going to answer absolutely next class. Do you have to use your own sound for echolocation? I'm so happy you asked that. Where can we find the syllabus? On the iLearn page. I was kind of hoping to get to another poll question, but you guys are asking so many great questions. We'll do the poll question next week. Is echolocation part of how people can sense if there is someone standing behind them or near them without seeing them? Great question. And I don't think any research has been done specifically on that, but we do echolocate all around. And we'll talk about that. So your intuition might be straight on, Joanna. That's a great one. Madison asks, will we be using this Zoom link permanently from now on? I hope so. Claire, do blind people naturally have more heightened senses than non-blind people, or is this a developed skill? And we will talk about that directly. My quick answer, though, is both. It is a developed skill, but they also have brain areas that allow the skill to develop more easily. Yes, you are meeting tomorrow, Vanessa. Sorry, everybody. I think we're going to have to answer. And now it is 6:20. I will copy these questions, though, and I will ask them. I will answer them next class. Again, let me apologize to everybody. I'm so sorry about the link. I will fix that. We'll be good to go next class. Enjoy your discussion sections, whether you're meeting tomorrow or Monday. Okay, bye, everybody.